From 1960 to 2004, it's estimated that 24 residents have disappeared without trace from the city of Nome, situated in the unorganized borough of Alaska, located on the southern edge of the seaward peninsula of Norton Sound. Sitting right on the coast of the Bering Sea, it's an incredibly isolated area and about as desolate as a city can get whilst still having inhabitants. Besides being flat and with less than 22 square miles of land, there is nothing particularly remarkable about Nome, at least not on its surface. The area of Nome has been reported to have the highest number of UFO sightings as compared to anywhere in the last frontier, referring to Alaska being admitted as the 49th state to the Union is thought as America's last frontier because of its distance between the lower 48 states, as well as its rugged landscape and harsh climate. According to the most recent survey of 2019, Nome's population sits in the region of 3,850. And given that the population is so small, why would, if what has been reported is to be believed, would Nome be chosen as a UFO hotspot? One specific but hypothetical reason that Nome would be up there on the list would be the significant isolation of the city. This alone would make Nome ideal for picking off the human population. Additional claims revolve around an alleged inexplicable signal being detected within Nome. I couldn't find any informational sources to back up this claim. However, something I did come across was the HAARP research facility based east of Anchorage. And even though this is interesting for separate reasons, Anchorage is approximately 537 miles away, making the HAARP facility even further away and not a viable option to validate whatever signals are being picked up in Nome. Getting to and travelling out of Nome is intriguing, for there are no roads and no ferry system, so the only way to travel into this isolated corner of the world is via airplane. Nome's surrounding area has roughly 350 miles of road embedded in its rugged and lonely terrain, with signs to avoid using them in the colder months, unless you absolutely have to. A don't say we didn't warn you kind of deal. And yet this only adds to the sense of isolation. Incredibly harsh winters fall between November through March, and it's not uncommon to see the temperature drop anywhere between -10 all the way down to the -50s. With weather like this, if someone was to be taken, it would be exceedingly difficult to arrange for searches, both on the ground and in the air. So when people began disappearing, many locals were convinced that a serial killer had to be involved. The community became on edge. And whilst it can be assumed, as I couldn't find any records on any of the missing people being found, deceased or otherwise, that those who have disappeared have done so without trace. Several articles available online state that through FBI investigation, it was determined that these disappearances were largely due to a combination of excessive alcohol consumption and the colder than cold weather climate. Meeting another dead end here, I was unable to substantiate this claim through what is available on the internet. I wouldn't go as far to say it's not true, but I personally haven't been able to back or source claims made through websites such as onlyinyourstate.com and adn.com. In 2009, controversy was kicked up by the Universal Pictures film, The Fourth Kind. The film claimed that the disappearances in Nome, spanning over several decades, were the result of alien abduction. Such was the uproar regarding this unwelcome conspiracy that Nancy Maguire, publisher and editor of the Nome Nugget, a local newspaper, rallied together with other news outlets and took legal action. In addition, and rightly, families of the missing in and around Nome were angered by the movie trivializing their loss with no substantial evidence. The case was settled by Anchorage Daily News attorney John McKay. NBC Universal were to stop producing fake news articles appertaining to the conspiracy theory and bogus stories in order to promote the movie. Universal were also ordered to pay for its past abuses of fact spun into fiction and there presented as fact. The press cloud received $20,000 plus an additional $2,500 contribution to its Callista Scholarship Fund. The movie was nothing more than a pile of fabrications made up for entertainment purposes. But that doesn't take away that over 20 people have disappeared without trace. And whilst there is next to no evidence to point to the individual circumstances surrounding those who have vanished, there are plenty of theories. My favourite fact I quickly learned whilst researching Nome. I did not find one photo, article, or personal account of the UFO sightings that Nome is supposed to be so well known for.